For the longest time, the debate all over the internet was whether or not we were ever going to get sports back in 2020. And to be honest, for a while there, things were starting to look pretty desolate. Thankfully, that answer turned out to be a yes. Because in the time since, the government and our professional sports leagues have implemented some different protocols, both around the country and within the realm of athletics, to position us to at least in some capacity get professional sports back. But because we are human beings and we love to find a negative spin on things, now that we have settled into a semblance of normalcy, the discussion has shifted from the whens and wheres and the hows of getting sports back to instead a debate surrounding the legitimacy the 2020 championships will have 5 or 10 years from now when we look back at it. The NBA championship in particular, because although they were one of the first major sports to make it back and seem to be doing it in one of the most effective and efficient ways of any pro sports league, there have been so many changes and everything is vastly different than it was pre-COVID. We've ended up with the NBA playoffs, which is usually over and done with in the beginning of summer, having been reinvented into a social distancing version of March Madness, where all the multi-millionaire players are living out of hotels on campus with all sorts of rules and restrictions on their behavior. These restrictions, along with the rest of the NBA's COVID-19 protocol, has created a ton of variables that undeniably have affected the games on the court. And as is the case with all things COVID and all things NBA as well, everyone seems to have an opinion on it. I understand that the teams aren't traveling, the arenas are quiet, and the whole thing is just, well, different. But does that mean that the team that captures the NBA championship this season will, or better yet, should, have an asterisk on that title? Players like Giannis Antetokounmpo, the league's reigning MVP, promptly downplayed this notion, saying the following: "I've heard a lot of people say that there's going to be like a star next to this championship. I feel like at the end of the day, this is going to be like the toughest championship you could ever win because the circumstances are really, really tough right now. So whoever wants it more is going to be able to go out there and take it." We can't just take one man's opinion on it though, even if he is one of the top players in the league. So let's take a look at some of the biggest differences in the bubble, as well as what some of the big personalities around the league have to say about whether or not this season's NBA champions ought to have an asterisk next to their name in the record books. How about we start with the obvious? There are no live fans, of course with the exception of that adorable NBA baby section, which, by the way, might be one of the bubble rules we should keep if and when the NBA gets back to normal next season. Anyway, in basketball in particular, the absence of live adult fans who are actively rooting for the games instead of mindlessly staring at their phones like these babies have been is a huge deal. The way NBA arenas are set up, the fans are basically right on top of the court, and the players can hear them loud and clear. So this change basically nullifies any home court advantage, as well as the hard work of the teams that had put themselves in position to have home court during the playoffs. Interestingly, the players have said that while not having the fans is obviously a pretty big adjustment, it's only pushing them to be more vocal on the court as they try and motivate their teammates directly. My voice is a little raspy because we're all we got. Lou Williams, the Los Angeles Clippers' sixth man, told reporters after an early bubble scrimmage, "It forces you as a team to be involved through and through, from the coaching staff to the guys on the floor and to the players on the bench. It will force everybody to create energy for themselves, to be all on the same page and just create some momentum for yourselves." That is not to say that the atmospheric responsibilities have fallen solely on the NBA players, as the league itself implemented a few infrastructural tweaks to the arena that have helped normalize this bizarro world NBA playoffs. For starters, the NBA installed these massive television screens that display team logos, the in-game statistics, and the game scoreboard that help shield television viewers from having to stare at the empty stands. Admittedly, this probably doesn't do too much for the players on the court, but it is a nice touch for the fans at home. The league also installed a sound system with a set of rules that were supposed to help make up for the loss of home court advantage. So whichever team is designated as the home team is rewarded after made baskets, and they're motivated with resounding defense chants while on the other end of the floor. New Orleans Pelicans former head coach Alvin Gentry, who coached the team in the bubble before being unceremoniously fired upon his team's elimination, was admittedly blown away by the NBA's technology. The other thing that's amazing is you can see where technology has gone, from the standpoint of, it's not that we're just going to be in an empty arena listening to the balls bounce, but there's going to be a lot of interaction actually with fans. The NBA has also gotten creative with some of the other ways to make up for the lack of crowd noise. It implemented an in-game announcer, and they're playing more music than usual during the game itself. One interesting tidbit that you may not have picked up on from from home is the producers have tried to tie regional music back to the teams playing. So when the Brooklyn Nets were playing, the tunes consisted of some big hip-hop stars from Brooklyn like Jay-Z and Notorious B.I.G. And when the LA Clippers played, it was Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. Pelicans forward Brand Ingram, whose team was actually eliminated before the bubble playoffs, explained that the experience has been a bit of a throwback to some positive memories. For many of the young guys in the league who love playing the game and spent countless hours of their adolescence at AAU tournaments, here's how he described it. It's different, but it gives you some AAU feels a little bit. For anybody that just likes basketball, you want to go out there and play. That's what we like doing. Obviously, this situation is not ideal, but it is good to hear that some of the guys have found joy in the millionaire summer camp environment that the NBA has created down in Orlando. Another significant factor in why some folks across the internet have been calling for an asterisk on this year's NBA champion is because there were a number of players who opted out of venturing to the bubble for various reasons, primarily citing health or family concerns. Fortunately for fans, none of the guys that opted out are legitimate superstars, because that would have changed the entire mood around the bubble. The guys like Trevor Ariza and Avery Bradley, for example, were expected to play pretty significant roles on contending teams. In a weird way though, having had the bubble and the resulting layoff beforehand might have actually increased the level of play on the court, as many NBA stars who were banged up in the dog days of the season had a unique opportunity to recover while the NBA sorted out all the logistics around returning to play. Take Ben Simmons for example. I know things didn't end up going too great for his Philadelphia Sixers, but back when the NBA suspended play, Simmons was in the midst of an 8-game layoff as a result of a nagging back injury. The kind of injury that he could have played through at the time, but he, along with his doctors, were more focused on trying to get him sorted out and healthy for the postseason. And Simmons felt like the time off for him was truly a blessing in disguise, telling reporters, "I'm feeling even better than I was when I started the season. I've been working since I had the injury, working until now to prepare for whatever happens wherever we go. I'm feeling great. I've been rehabbing the whole time, so I'm feeling ready and I'm feeling comfortable." Unfortunately for Simmons, it didn't take long for him to suffer another ailment, as he was forced to leave the bubble after suffering a knee injury during the league's return to play. And then there's the Celtics' Kemba Walker, who had been really coming into his own with his new team in January and February, but by March had fallen victim to a knee injury that first caused his numbers to tail off and eventually resulted in him missing several games. The NBA has also done a nice job of letting the players ramp back up to full-on competition instead of just thrusting them back into game speed by starting the playoffs immediately. Instead, players were given time to acclimate to the bubble, first via team practices, then inter-team scrimmages, and finally into a shortened closeout of the regular season before transitioning into the playoffs. Doc Rivers, however, was pretty firm in his belief that while the players would rise to the occasion, no one was going to be better because of the bubble. Doc explained it by saying, "I don't think anyone is going to be better because we're playing in this environment. The great players are still going to be the great players. The role players are still going to be the role players. And the best team is going to win." Admittedly, his comments were a little bit biased, as the Clippers entered the bubble as one of the favorites to take home the Larry O'Brien trophy. So maybe he wanted to play up the fact that he thought the best team was gonna win. But Doc has been around the NBA for a long time, and to me, it doesn't sound like he thinks the bubble champions should bear the burden of an asterisk. In fact, pretty much every coach in the bubble, whether they were a true contender or not, echoed a similar sentiment to Coach Rivers. Many of them even upped the ante, arguing that whichever team had the mental fortitude to adjust to such a drastically different environment deserved more credit than a traditional champion. Just look at how Denver coach Michael Malone explained it. If you're able to go into a bubble and be isolated from your friends and family, to have no home court advantage, to have a league interruption of 4 months, and you're able to spend 90 days and come out there a champion, I think this will be the toughest championship ever won. There's no asterisk. You win an NBA championship anytime, it's a hell of an accomplishment. But in these circumstances, these unprecedented times, with everything going on, I think it will be a remarkable accomplishment. And you know what? I think that these guys have a point. If anything, this year's NBA title has presented more challenges than benefits. And while we have never experienced anything like the coronavirus before, there is some precedent for teams winning titles in shortened seasons. People forget, but when LeBron and the Miami Heat took home the title back in 2012, it was also in a shortened season, following a labor dispute between the players and owners that limited the regular season to just 66 games. Same with the 1999 NBA championship that was won by the San Antonio Spurs after a 50-game regular season. Yet, there are no asterisks next to their titles. People hardly even talk about the fact that the regular season was shortened in those championship years. Not to mention the fact that this NBA season saw the 22 remaining bubble teams all play between 71 and 75 games out of the regular 82 before the playoffs. So I am hard pressed to start talking about asterisks. The fact of the matter is, if you really wanted to, you could find a way to slap an asterisk on most of the titles throughout history, either following an injury to a star player or a labor dispute or whatever. But if you ask me, I am siding with the guys actually in the bubble and not in the media, because no one knows how the game has changed more than the guys that are living it. And if they say it flies, who are we to say no? But hey, do you think this year's NBA champion deserves an asterisk next to their name? Join us in the comment section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton. And hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next time.